Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for the second episode of our Engineer Your Career series. My name is Jess. I'm a sales lead here at ShowCode and also the host of this new series that we started rolling out. I will very soon hand over to my lovely co-hosts who will introduce themselves. But today's session is all going to be about the gender pay gap. So really interesting topic, something that definitely needs to be talked more about, which we're going to be covering over the next hour or so. But just a few house rules before we kick off. I will be monitoring the chat, so if you've got any questions, please pop them in there, or if you just want to share sort of like your general views on things or like what you're hearing about us talk about. In terms of if you want to connect with any of us on LinkedIn, throughout the session I'll try and get everyone's LinkedIn socials posted, or if you hang on 5 minutes after the call, it will give me a time to post them all together whilst I try and just get them all in a row for you. In terms of ShowCode, just for we get the conversation started, if you've not heard of us before, ShowCode is a community platform for tech communities. So Athena is one of our key ones, which is for women and non-binaries in tech, which is how I know these lovely ladies on the call with me today. And then we have loads of other communities starting to build up, including the student focus one, and then ones that all of our company partners are starting to generate as well. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to get in touch with us. If you've not got a ShowCode profile yet, you can create one via showcode.io and start getting involved in all of the amazing hackathons, coding competitions, webinars, workshops, and everything else we've got going on there. And you can even look to apply for some jobs and get hired. So happy days. And so that's me done. I'm not going to bore anyone else with more information on that. Let's do some introductions. So Regina, do you want to kick off?
Sure, why not? Hi everyone, my name is Regina. I work at Deloitte in the cloud and engineering department, and I got into tech like this time last year, and then I got my first tech role in February of 2022. So yeah.
Fab, thank you. Emma, do you want to go next?
Hey, I'm Emma. I've been a front-end software engineer for about 5 years now. I don't come from a computer science background. I did something called digital media that was kind of a bit of a mixture of graphic design, media theory, and web development. And web development was basically what I was interested in. So I just kind of self-taught from there. And yeah, I am currently looking for a new role. So I don't currently have a job. But yeah, I was previously working at companies building reusable, shareable web components for internal teams.
Perfect, thank you. And then Faith, last but not least.
Hi everyone, my name is Faith. I am a software engineer at MDRX Tech. My main focus is in the back end. I got into tech earlier this year, but I started with tech support kind of role, and then I fully transitioned into software engineering in September. And I'm from a non-technical background, studied social science, and now I'm here. So nice to meet everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, the three of you, for your introductions. Anyone, as I say, I will be posting socials and so on. Mary, nice to see you as well in the chat. Great to hear you're changing into tech as well. Hopefully you'll find this beneficial, but definitely check out lots of our content on our YouTube channel as well. There's lots of stuff there regarding changing into tech. And as you'll hear from the three who are on the call, they can definitely give a lot of insights into how that journey can look like. So just to kick off, so Equal Pay Day. It's the 20th of November, it was Equal Pay Day. So for everyone watching who's actually not heard doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about there, it's basically the day, and this is from Fawcett Society, I'm not actually just making this up, but it's the day when women effectively stopped earning compared to men because of the issue with the gender pay gap right now. How are you three feeling about that?
I'm just going to quit.
I'd rather not work.
Yeah, I think it's just crazy, to be fair, like, because we're doing essentially the same thing. So I don't understand why we can't get paid the same. And like when this date approaches, we're like in comparison paid significantly less. It doesn't make sense to me personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't even like, how have we got to this point? Like, there's so much talk. Like, let's not, like, I was doing like a talk a couple of weeks ago at the Tech Talent Conference by the IHR sort of events team. And like part of it, I put together like a time frame. It's all about empowering women and non-binaries in tech. Now, obviously, I can't cover that whole topic in 20 minutes. But one thing I wanted to kick off with was actually the history behind women in tech, because so many companies are on this digital transformation journey, but most of them probably don't even know why they're doing it or what's the point to it. So literally I kicked off from the beginning of like the 20th century, like where we had like the world wars going on. Obviously all of the women took up like STEM jobs, like over like 75% of like the modern day, well, today's GCHQ back then was obviously like the code breaker house were women. And then like apparently in the 17s came around and the government were like, oh, you know what, actually we quite like tech, this is quite a cool topic, like quite a cool industry, and let's just get like loads of men like into the jobs that all the women have been doing for quite a while, and we'll shaft them out and just give the men like better salaries, better job titles. And that was like the beginning of like what became like obviously the issue we're now seeing today. Now I know it's very focused on the tech space, but I think that has a huge impact on the history that we had throughout the 1900s to now actually be at a point where the four of us sitting here today and any women that's listening to this right now or will be in the future, that's crazy. Like, what do you think has maybe caused this? Like, apart from the history I just said, like, what do you think companies are getting so wrong?
Yeah, it kind of almost feels like that was like the beginning of the end. Yeah, like women in technology is not like a new concept, right? Like, it's not that we can't do it or we're not good at it. It's more that it became a space that was so heavily male dominated that women didn't feel welcome in that space. So I feel like the only way that we can combat that right now is to just encourage more women to get into roles in technology, and also make it clear that like being a woman in tech doesn't mean that you have to be an engineer or code all the time either. Like, there's so many different roles in tech that need women to be in them as well. It's not just like the software engineers that we're trying to encourage more women to get into too. There's so many different roles in tech. But I feel like a lot of the companies right now, anyway, their engineering departments are heavily male dominated, and maybe it's not so much a lack of the talent out there, it's just how you're getting access to that talent and how you're advertising the jobs that you have available and how you're making the space in your work environment a welcome space that women want to work in and want to like feel, well, like where they can feel empowered and encouraged to do their best work, instead of being in an environment where like they feel like the outsider, because it's not only about feeling about the outsider, but also like bringing different perspectives to conversations. Like, my previous job was one of the most diverse places I've ever worked, and I really felt the difference compared to previous roles where like we all had different backgrounds, different perspectives, different ways of thinking, like different ways of problem solving, and it really like made us create the best work in the end. So that's definitely like now when I'm on a new job search trying to find another role, like key things that I'm asking in interviews is what's like the workforce like, what's the environment like, and also I judge companies based on how diverse their interview panels are as well when they're interviewing me, because they should have enough women at the company to be able to have a diverse panel as well when people are interviewing for roles.
Yeah, no, I think there's stuff. I think some companies do get it really well. Like I had a friend recently, she just started, not in tech, so she's in, it's a very good question, I don't quite understand what she does. Something to do with ground and the dirt or something. Something way above my head. But she was like being severely underpaid by a company, and she kept saying to them, like, pay me my market rate. And then she had a meeting like about 2 months ago, said, oh, we think you're like a flight risk. I don't know if any of you, the three of you are aware of this term in your companies at all or have something similar. Yeah. So basically flight risk means like you're at risk of obviously leaving the company. So they detected she was a flight risk because they realized they hadn't been paying her enough. Well, funny enough, she just started a new job this week. So it's like, like, if you've got that sort of, you've got those processes in place internally to identify when someone's probably going to be looking at leaving. So why do you then, is it just is it laziness, do we think? Or
that's what actually infuriates me though, is places that then will give you a rise once you say that you're leaving or you've thought about leaving, because if they're then willing to pay you more money at that point, they always had the money to pay you that amount in the first place. So like if I'm telling a place that I'm leaving, like I've checked out from that company already. So like no matter if they pay me more money, it actually just leaves like an even more sour taste with me, because I'm like, okay, so you knew that you were underpaying me and you actually could have paid me more this whole time. So like it just proves kind of the point.
Yeah. Faith or Regina, have you had like yourselves, have you actually witnessed this or know of any friends that have had to deal with this actively? Like, what's your sort of thoughts on it?
100%. I dealt with it in my last role. So, and I think for me, the problem is just how secretive, like, the knowledge about like salaries are. Like, there's nowhere you can go and actually be able to find like a credible resource where you can say, oh, this is actually how much I get paid for this role. This is like, let's say, the standard salary or something. There's nowhere you go until you're having a conversation with a colleague and then they just mention, oh, I'm earning this, and you're like, how are you earning this and I'm earning this, and we're literally in the same role. So that was how I found out that I was being underpaid, was that I was just having a casual conversation with my colleague, and then they mentioned, oh, this is how much I'm being paid, and I was like, really? And I was like, oh, did you get a promotion, or are you in a different role? And he was like, no, same role and everything. It's just really weird when that situation happens, because you then have to think, how am I going to approach this situation without the fear of maybe losing your job because you're trying to get the right answers, or would this cause any problem or any rift with your workplace? So it's a very challenging space to be in, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, Regina.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, something happened to me, like, I think it was like 6 months ago. I had a friend in the company, and I'm always curious about like salaries anyway. So I was like to her, like, oh, hey, you've been here a bit longer than me, right? We're apparently having like a mid review. Do you mind me asking like what you're on? And because I came into the company through a boot camp, I always assumed that we were on a bit less anyway. But it turned out she who came through a graduate scheme was actually on significantly less. And that's how we stopped. Yeah, it was so shocking, honestly, because she was like, wait, what? Like, how come you're on this? I'm on this. I came through a graduate scheme. So like, for me, it was like, one, it's important to talk about salary, because because even though we were in different departments, we do the same thing. It's still consultancy. So we were both shocked that like we were on different pay, especially because I thought I'd be on a lesser pay because I came in through a more non-conventional route, where she came through a conventional route, and she was getting paid significantly less. And then obviously we had the review, mine went higher and so did hers, but it didn't match mine regardless. Do you get it? So it was a bit, yeah. So that's when I was like, raw, like this is serious.
Yeah, and it causes like, it then makes you feel uncomfortable. Like, I think that's why it probably gets avoided, because people feel uncomfortable. But that's the thing, you've got to have these difficult conversations in order for changes to be made. I think as women, we all know, like from history, like the longer we stay quiet, the worse it just gets. So now we're actually getting a voice and getting our confidence back. And companies are now like, oh, hell, like over like I don't know how many years they've been around, we actually do need to sort ourselves out, because people want to know. Like I was seeing the other day, so PwC did a report back in 2022. Did you know the gender pay gap's actually increased? So companies have reported an increase. So it's 43% now in terms of their pay gap has actually got worse in terms of better. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know if that's maybe, I don't know, could it be influenced by the pandemic? But then I don't know. Like, why that shouldn't affect anyone. Like, you should just be paying everyone the same. Like, nothing should be impacting that. I don't understand how we're going backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe it's like, because I've been hearing a lot now that a lot of people negotiate their pay. So maybe they're not sure, because it was me and Emma had this conversation at the last hackathon, talking about like, when you ask a recruiter what is the range, as opposed to telling them first like how much it's paid. So like, not that is the reason why it's going backwards, but it could be that like people are not knowing that they can negotiate, or like they're putting their cards on the table first when it should be the recruiter telling them like what it is. Do you get it?
No, definitely. I'm just going to post a quick poll for those that are watching. So it's basically going to say how many years will it take to close the gender pay gap. Now, you three don't answer the question because I know you know the answer because we've spoken about this already. So don't give it away. I'm just going to publish the poll. So those that are watching, feel free to have a guess. Some of you may know because it has been advertised quite a lot recently because of the equal pay day we had. Well, funny enough, only a few days ago. So just interested to see if you want to submit your answers, what you think it's going to be. And I'll just let that run for a little bit. But I suppose it's the impact as well then. Like, obviously, we're in a cost of living crisis. So, and as women, not all of us, some of us may just want to have a family at some point. So what are we going to, like, how can we get this changed? Because, I mean, childcare is, I think, when I was speaking with like my sister, she said it's cost on average like £800 to £900 a month for one of her kids to go to be looked after. Like, so if we're earning in circa, apparently it's like £564 less than men each month. Like, so it just, I just don't. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. If you've had any experience, we've got friends who've got kids and have been impacted by this.
Yeah, one of my friends from school, she just had a baby, and she's basically realized that she's not going back to work because it's not beneficial. The amount that they would have to pay for childcare and the amount she would earn from working, like it would basically be break even. Like she would get nothing out of going to work. So she's decided that she's not going to go back to work, and instead she's going to do full-time childcare, and instead her partner will go to work. And they'll live up, like the both of them will live off his salary. But it's just like mad that the cost that it would like to put her child in care is like the same amount that she would make from going to work, which is why salaries like and negotiating and everything is so important. And I think the other thing which me and Regina spoke about before about like, negotiating salaries is like, I've had it previously where sometimes companies will advertise like a range for a job. If you're lucky, sometimes they won't say anything. But like, I remember when I was changing jobs once and I saw a salary range and it was like the beginning part of that, that range was like double what I was on currently. And I thought it was like crazy. Like at the time I was earning 20K and this salary range started at 40. And I was just like, I couldn't imagine anyone ever paying me £40,000 to do what I do. Like, I was like, that is insane. So even though it said that the salary range started at 40 and it asked if my expected salary, I still put in 35. And even then I felt like an imposter. I was like, how am I asking for £35,000 for like little old me doing what I do? Like, this is insane. But then I went through like the process, and what they offered me in the end was the 35, even though I know on their thing that the salary range started at 40. And I feel like that's the situation of saying like the negotiation part as well, is that like I feel as women sometimes we don't like back ourselves enough or don't have the confidence in conversations like that to kind of push for like the higher end of salaries. And also even that, I think like if a recruiter or company knows that a interviewee is like lowballing themselves, like you should let them know, and you should tell them like, hey, I know you said your expected salary is this, but like actually your market rate for that role, or like what we usually pay people at that level is this, so we're going to pay you that. And I feel like that's the like key bit that is sometimes missing in some companies, because obviously like it's a business at the end of the day, and like they've got budgets and stuff to go with. But like once you start paying people differently, like when you hire them, that's when you then increase that like discrepancy across the board inside the company. And then it's way more difficult to figure that out and kind of like balance stuff out once you're in there as well. Whereas actually it's like at the hiring point as well, you should make sure that everybody is coming in at the level that's fair, and people at that same level are being paid around that same amount at the company too.
Just to piggyback off of what Emily said about like salary negotiation, I think is so important, because when I first started out in my career, I didn't realize, you should ask about things like benefits or commission bonuses, or like even things with like, oh, does your company supply you with work from home equipment, or just little things like that. I had no idea that you should speak about those things. So whenever I would just see like maybe a huge salary, I would just be like, oh yeah, that's perfect. That's it for me. That's what I need. And then you wouldn't even you have no knowledge about, would you even get like a sign-on bonus? Do you get stocks? There's so many things that I did not realize come into factor whenever you're trying to negotiate your salary, which I think, especially when you have recruiters, it should be their job to kind of make you aware about situations like this, or you yourself, research about it. But it's just the way, the idea of like salary, the negotiation, the whole process is so secretive, and it's so like it's it's a strange like place to be in. So it's, yeah, at least I'm happy that now we're kind of speaking about it, and like people want to know, people want to make sure that they're being paid their worth. So it's really good. The progress now is good to see.
Yeah, no, it is definitely there. As I said, yeah, there is definitely improvements. But does it then? I'm looking at hearing obviously from you speaking. Is it a case then that, and I have brought this up so many times before in social posts and so on, is it then, are we looking at the foundations of what happens when we're at school? Like, we're not taught anything. I think naturally, I can't remember anything really useful being taught to me about general sort of life, getting a job.
Yeah, we don't get taught this stuff at all. Like I have a lot of conversations with my friends. I think me and Faith, we talk about it quite a bit as well. Yeah. Like we don't get taught it. So then like when we get to the workforce, we think that we should just take like what we're given.
Whatever.
And I've just seen that Brian's comment in the chat, right? And that's literally what I was even gonna say, that like seeing what like my friends or other friends are doing in life, having kids, and knowing that they can't go back to work. For me, when it comes to negotiating salary going forward, it's that anything that's going to impact me in life and that's going to make me go backwards, I need to like factor that in. And I feel like companies should know that, especially when it comes to women, because it's like, if I get pregnant, I'm probably not going to work again because the childcare thing doesn't make sense. Do you get what I mean? And that's going to put me back how many years while the men keep climbing, and it's not fair. So if I have to take all these hits, then I should be compensated those hits. Obviously, like if my talent affords that, if I'm good at what I do, then cool. But I just feel like it's not like spoken about, nor is it like considered, and it really should be, because like women a lot of the time are the ones who have to make a lot of the sacrifices.
And I think with that, when it comes to, you then start touching on the maternity and paternity stuff. And I was speaking with a friend the other day, and quite a few of my friends are either getting engaged, getting married, looking at starting a family. But some of them are like, we're just putting it off because like starting a family, because in all honesty, I don't really know how we could afford it. And then the maternity pay that they get from whichever companies they're working for, it's nothing. They only either get the statutory bit, which is, was it 3 months or something? One of them gets like 4 months, and then you have to come back to work, or you basically have to leave the company. If like there's not like any in between. Obviously, you can take the government one, but there's just so many barriers in place. So then when it comes to actually getting equal pay is one thing, but generally cost of living, it does seem to come a lot on our shoulders. Not saying men don't have to take any ownership either, but there's a lot more obstacles we've got to think about. Just looking at the poll, I will close this now, but to be fair, actually everyone watching, you've obviously seen some posts on LinkedIn, whether it be my own post or the others. So yeah, 257 years is the recent data for how long it is going to take to close the gender pay gap the way it stands. So we will be long gone before this ever gets resolved. But it's scary. A few people said 27 years. I just put these random years in. A few people said 84. A few people said 161. But yeah, 257. So ladies, I know when we were chatting the other day and I was giving you a few of the key stats that we're going to be going over, just for those that weren't obviously partaking in our lovely WhatsApp group that we have, what was your reactions to this? And I know what your reactions were, but just to explain to everyone else exactly how you reacted when I dropped this stat down.
Madness. It's crazy, but I think the other thing, like based off what we were just talking about with like women taking career breaks and stuff as well, like a lot of the issues with the gender pay gap as well is just like the lack of women in leadership positions and senior positions in companies. And I think that is massively down to like what Brian said, like when women take breaks and then they come back, like they're immediately behind their male colleagues that didn't take those breaks. And I think what companies need to work on is the support that they give for women who are returning to work, who have taken breaks, and how they can kind of like get back on track without having to be like years and years behind everyone else, and still kind of encourage them to go into those leadership positions. Especially because I know there's like, you know, there's, I guess like this is like rumors of why women aren't in more leadership positions is because people, like companies know that women get pregnant and women take breaks. So like they then would rather promote a man into that leadership position because they know that they can like rely on them being there for, especially once like you hit a certain age as a woman as well, then they'll be like, you know, oh, it might come in the next few years kind of thing. So then it's women like missing out on that kind of thing as well. But actually companies need to just be able to support those who want to take a break and make sure that when they return, they're fully supported, like can kind of get back onboarded really quickly, the resources to kind of grow themselves again, maybe like a bit quicker because they've taken a break off, and just make sure that like when they return back, it's not kind of just like plateaued and they just stay at this same place, but instead encourage them to go for the promotion and go for the manager role, even if they have taken a break, because that's kind of like where we're lacking as well, is the presence of women in those senior positions.
Yeah, to even add to what Emma said, it's like also for like to help for companies to like check like any biases or assumptions they have when women do come back into work. Because I've like, obviously I think we see on TV shows all the time when a woman now comes back to work and they're trying to be given more responsibility, they go, oh no, she can't do it, she has a child, she doesn't have the time. Like, yeah, she has a child and she has got other responsibilities, but don't take that away from her, because then it stops her progressing and, you know, getting into those positions. So I think it's something that needs to be like taken into consideration and remembered, that yes, support them, but make sure that you're supporting them by giving them more responsibility and not just dismissing and making and saying, oh, they have a child, they won't do it. You don't know, so just ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I remember like years ago, I can't remember if it was a manager or someone I worked with, and it was actually a bit of a breath of fresh air. He said some of his favorite people that he's had working underneath or worked with, the ones that have been the most hardworking are like part-time mums, because they know they've got to be places. So they get the work done when they need to. Like there's no sort of procrastinating, which I think it's fair to say a lot of us can be guilty of. But if you've got like set timelines, it's amazing how quickly someone will and can get through stuff compared to another individual in the same role. So why should that person be penalised because obviously they have taken that break and so on to go on and have kids? So Brian, I think, thanks. Does the panel think that extending parental benefits to men has helped address the balance?
I think so. There is this founder, I think his name is Alexis Ohanian, and he really pushes for men to also get like parental, like for them to get like the maternal leave as well, just as how women would get it. So he always pushes for it, and you can see that that kind of helps with the balance, because it reduces that like pressure from the woman's side, where she's kind of thinking, oh, do I have to leave my job so that I can take care of my child alone? You know, seeing as her husband is then going to go to work and she's left alone. But like when the man is, it's a two parents household and the man is there able to help her, knowing that, you know, his job is still intact and, you know, he's getting paid leave and everything. So I think in some ways it does help reduce, like address the balance, but there just needs to be more done towards like for women, because if what if it's a situation where it's a single mother and you know she doesn't have a husband, or you know the child's father isn't there, so it's literally her looking after her child, and you know she has to think about how is she going to feed this child, how is she going to take care of this child, and then think about how she's address the whole job situation. So in some situation, it does address the balance, but not for all situations.
Yeah, I think it gives perspective as well. Like it shows that like if a woman wants to really like, you know, be ambitious and like go for a career and her husband is supportive and he wants to take he wants to be on a parental leave, like it's okay. Like it doesn't have to just be like women take maternal leave and go, like men can take it too, and like the dynamic shift. And I feel like by encouraging that, it kind of like makes it a bit more normal, because I remember years ago I never used to see like parental leave, but now I see it more and more, and it's become more normalized. So I think it's like very helpful. So to give perspective.
Yeah, no, it's great to see it becoming more common. It definitely is something that pops up in a lot more sort of like job descriptions and so on now, whereas before, I don't know, it just wasn't really talked about. Again, no, I do think there's always like this bit of a taboo talking about women and sort of like how we can get more of them into this, like how we can support them with childcare. It's like, I don't know, like the people that need to be talking about it are like the board members, but the board members, as we know in a lot of companies, I think it's like only 5% of tech leaders in the world are actually female. So the other 95% are sort of making the or got final call on these sort of decisions. So maybe that, as you're saying earlier, Emma, about getting more women in senior leadership roles, but then is there sort of a gap there? Like I know tech returners do a really good job of reskilling people that have obviously had that break and then they come back into the working world, and companies that work with them have been really successful with that. But then it's how can we teaching people to upskill like negotiation skills and so on. Like I don't know if you've got any experience or advice from what I know you Faith and Regina, you're saying that you two have spoken about that between you, but have you found any resources online or anything that could help an individual to sort of learn themselves, or is it something that maybe companies could be looking to help people do, like releasing resources and stuff on the HR team, because obviously they're the ones that normally deal with those sort of negotiations?
Yeah, I think what Regina mentioned earlier, my like biggest ever tip that I could give anyone ever is that if anybody ever asks you what your expected salary is, to ask them what the range for the role is. Do not say a number until they've given you a range. I've been bitten by that in the past, and like at my previous role as well, like when they asked me what my expected salary was, and in my head I had a number, but I asked what the range was, and the range was still like 20% above the number that I had in my head. So I'm like, had I said that number, they probably would have given me that number had I not known about the range. So I think that's like the key thing, because then once you know the range, you're then like negotiating within a range, and you know like kind of what they can push to and what they can't push to. The other thing though as well, which I think like going back to what we were saying earlier with like how kind of when we were younger, it's kind of like you should be really happy that someone wants to hire you and you should take that job and like run with it. But actually like when you're interviewing for somewhere, like you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And like it's not you on the kind of firing line here. Like both of you are trying to figure out if you're a match for each other, because like there's so many companies out there, there's so many people wanting jobs. Like you can find a match if you talk to enough people and kind of work out how different companies are. So I think also kind of letting yourself be okay to be like, actually I'm not really feeling it from this company right now, and then push more with the companies that you are bothered about, and kind of like, to me, I want to work at a company that values me and will pay me like the market rate that I'm worth. So if a company doesn't want to do that, then that reflects negatively on that company in my view. So like I have a more positive experience with companies that will be more honest and transparent about like their salary brackets, what they're willing to pay me, what they could push to pay me to, but like I'd have to show that these different skills in the interviews and that kind of thing. Like I way more appreciate that honesty up front than kind of, as Faith was saying before, like companies being a lot more secretive. And I think that's how we can then help like people who have taken breaks and then come back. Like so much changes in tech in a year, like massively different spaces become more in demand, salaries go up, other spaces like become less, so salaries might have stayed the same. Like when you then come back, you're like, you need to know that kind of like ballpark figure that you should be looking for, that like you're now worth for the skills that you had, and make sure that you find somewhere that will pay you that and not kind of try and cut you short.
Yeah, if you don't want to talk to HR, I can't lie, go on LinkedIn, find someone who works for the company, have a little chat. Like, you know, obviously they might not want to disclose it. That's up to you. But they're not the only ones in the company, so you can ask other people, and they might be more than happy to expose it. And I feel like we had a situation at the hackathon where we were asking a company about pay transparency, and they weren't being transparent. And like Emma said, they didn't want to. It reflects badly on them to ask. But I just feel like sometimes HR at the end of the day, they are for the company. So if you really do want to know, just reach out to people. Like, you'd be surprised. People are willing to help you if you just ask. Like, that's one thing I've learned. Like, people will let you know. They'll be honest, and if they want to, obviously. But yeah, just ask. You don't. I always say, you don't ask, you don't get. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The only bad thing to people in a company talking about their salaries is that reflecting badly on the company because they have a pay issue. Like, there's nothing negative that can come out of you sharing your salary with your colleagues unless there's a pay issue. Because if there's no pay issue, then you're like, okay, cool, you're on a level higher than me, you're getting paid more than me, like, that's all good. Because I've had that at a previous company where me and one of my colleagues shared our salaries with each other, and they were actually getting paid more than me, even though I was mentoring them. And when I then, when I then spoke to HR about that, like, I was kind of told that, like, we're not really meant to talk about our salaries with each other. But like, dude, like, that's red flag. Like, if the company doesn't want you to talk about your salaries internally, then that, like, in my opinion, there's a pay issue, because there should be no downside to people talking about their salaries if there's no problem. Like, you know, because we all know there's a hierarchy. We know there's different pay that different people can get based off where you are in that hierarchy. So if like that has been kept to, then that's fine. But if we're doing the same job and you're getting paid a lot more than me, like, okay, yeah, you can have a difference of like a couple K here and there. But like, if you're getting paid like 10K more than me for the exact same role, that's a problem. And if you're on a level below me and you're getting paid more than me, that's even a bigger problem. So yeah, I encourage talking to people about it.
Yeah, and I think just like when Regina said that, you know, if you can't find where to like see your salary, you should speak to someone on LinkedIn. But then again, it's like, if someone on LinkedIn doesn't give you the answer, then what do you then do? Or like, how can you then find the resources? So I think also government and companies need to find a way to be able to disclose like the salaries. It shouldn't be this mystery. It shouldn't be hard to find out how much you should be paid for in a role. Or, you know, platforms like Glassdoor should do more to make sure that whatever they're putting there is actually reliable or, you know, effective resources. So there's a lot to think about.
It's almost like we need something where people can post their salaries. We can
validate it.
I knew you were going to bring this up eventually. I was like, if I can just get them to hold fire until like the last sort of like 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll give them full reign to promote their project that they are building. One last thing before you guys do dive into this, and those that are participating or watching, it is a very exciting project that the three ladies have been building or built recently and working on. But just a quick note that actually apparently the gender pay gap for employees aged over 40 is higher than those under 40. #ageism. So I think that's probably, then again, I can imagine, I'm looking at my mum's generation. I know my mum never got paid what she should have been paid. She is very aware of that. But it was of an era where women pretty much didn't have a voice, especially in certain industries. She was in like, not construction, but that kind of sort of world. So another very male-dominated industry. So at least we're getting louder. I just wanted to finish on that little point before you guys dive in. So thank you, Mary. I mean, it's great to hear in the States they're bringing new laws. There we go. That means employers have to disclose all of the salary stuff and whatever. So that's really, really good to hear. Maybe across the pond where we are, things will get done. So Indeed's doing salary estimates. I don't think people need to be going on a salary hunt circus just to get crucial information. Yeah, I think that's the thing. There's so much scattered information. Glassdoor I used to heavily rely on when I was job hunting, but actually I've come to realize it's a lot of, you have to be very careful what you take from Glassdoor. LinkedIn is the same. LinkedIn's not certified. Like my CEO's always made like the joke, like he could just log in and be the CEO of Google if he wanted to. Like it's just one of those things. Like there's no certification. So I think that's definitely something, part of the ShowCode platform we want to implement as we grow, is everything is certified. So did you actually work here? Did this happen? Don't worry, we're not going down the Glassdoor route. That's not what we want to be. But it's very much about making sure that the information out there is correct, because otherwise you're just going on like a false pretense into interviews and so on. So, well, we've covered quite a lot. So we've said schools could probably do a lot more, and maybe corporates could support schools in getting more education out there on how young people can start to sort of work on their CVs a bit more, negotiate in interviews and so on, not be so intimidated by an interviewer. It's a two-way street, I think, is the main thing. You are trying to work out, is that job suitable for you, as much as the company is trying to find out, are you suitable for them? Negotiation skills are kind of just touched on then. Extended parental benefits, we do overall think are helping, but it's situational based. So if you're a single mother, is there more that companies could do to help a woman who has a child? It's quite difficult. And then asking for the salary range. So when you are asked what is your previous salary, ask for the range, because definitely I've been stung with that as well, Emma. You're not alone with that. I've been stung by that many times, and then not realised until I started the job and then gone, why did I accept this job? So we've covered quite a bit there. I will actually now just do a bit of an intro into how I met these three lovely ladies. To be fair, I've known them since like, what was it, April this year, probably, when we all started talking, and then we came to the June hack. Yeah. So for those who have not been part of Athena before, I touched on at the beginning of the call. So Athena is our community for women and non-binaries in tech. Each year we host 2 hackathons, which are really, really good fun. If you're not involved in tech at the moment but are thinking about it, it's a really great way to be able to just sort of get that exposure, meet some great people as well, and have great conversations. There's also free food if you come to the in-person stuff, which is really, really good fun. And we always do like fun activities and breakout sessions, so you don't have to sit there and be a hardcore coder to get involved with our hackathons. But at the last June hack, Regina, Faith and Emma met at the very end of the event, wasn't it? You hadn't spoken to each other the whole weekend, competing in different teams, and then all of a sudden connected. And next thing I know, they're coming back as like a force to be reckoned with in the October one. We're like, right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do Kudos' one, which is in the blockchain space. And I was like, okay, I'm going to speak, and they're going to speak a bit more about what inspired them, which was the topic we're talking about today, and how they got to building Loophole. I've just let it drop there, but the amazing Loophole, which did actually win the Kudos project theme. So whichever one of you wants to take over, I will go on mute and also get your link socials all up so people can start connecting with you.
I'll start off here because basically me and Emma were like interested in the companies that were there, so we're like, okay, let's go ask them, let's go like see what they're saying. So we went, right, cool. And then our friend Ada, who was on our project as well, she came chatting over like, Regina, I've been trying to call you, like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh god, I'm like, Emma, I'm like, don't worry, she's always like this. Then I think it was Bay Systems, one of them, and I think she was like to them, so what's the salary range? How much do you guys pay? And I think you were shocked. You were like, oh. I was like, she's always like this. She's like, and then Ada was like, no, it's really important to know like how much you're getting paid. Like, you know, we're in a cost of living crisis, inflation, like we're women, like we need to know, like, because I need to like know what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna manage the money. So that's how it started. And then obviously we go around and around, and then we'd ask some companies, and someone would be like, yeah, we got a really good starting salary, and then they'll say like 25k, and it's like, oh, okay, different to what we thought, but okay, cool. And it was kind of like that, literally. I feel like everyone at the hackathon knew us as the people going around asking the companies, what's your salary? And it's from there that like we thought, okay, why can't we just talk about this? Why can't we make this our project, basically? So yeah, that's me. That's how it started. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the weekend also began with me sat there next to Faith Googling what is Web3 and the blockchain. Because I had absolutely no idea. But yeah, I think we realized as a group really quickly that we were all really passionate about the importance of salary transparency from all companies, and we realized that it wasn't as easy to get it. And even in the kind of like most straightforward way that Ada had taken at the weekend of just going up and asking people, like, people still felt uncomfortable to say what ranges were, which is like crazy when you think about it, right? Because like, yeah, okay, we go to work because we're like passionate about what we do, and like we love products that we work on and that kind of thing. But like at the end of the day, like people do go to work to get paid. Like you need money to live, so you need to work to live. So like you need to know kind of what money you're working with as to whether you want to get involved in that company. Like especially with tech interviews as well, like the process can be so long, and it's like you don't want to get to that very last stage and then they tell you a salary that's like 20% under what you're currently on. Like you've just wasted their time and your time. So that's why like the salary transparency up front is so important, and being able to kind of whittle down which companies will be able to work within the range that you're looking for. But what we realized was that the existing products out there, like we've mentioned earlier on this call, like Glassdoor and Levels.fyi and like LinkedIn as well. Jess gave the example about how anyone could come on and say they're CEO of Google and no one's verifying it. So this data, although it's there, it's not reliable and it's not been verified, which makes it really difficult for us to be able to make informed decisions when it comes to negotiating our salary or picking companies, picking levels that we want to go in at, that kind of thing, because there is no kind of like hard truth that we can go to and see, okay, everybody who works at Google at my level is earning this much, so I know that that's how much they should offer me when I go for my interview, or that's how much money I should like negotiate for, to make sure that you're not lowballing yourself and then you don't join a company and realize that actually the people around you are getting paid a lot higher than you are. Yeah, that was kind of a bit more backstory. I don't know, Faith, if you want to give a lowdown of what we actually did.
Yeah. I think what was wonderful with Loophole and why we decided to specifically focus on using blockchain to build Loophole and the Kudos Challenge is that with Loophole, because we wanted the information or the data that we were collecting to be verified, to enable like transparency, and just like what we're saying with certification of these salaries directly from the companies, we decided to build it on Kudos blockchain, because I mean, what is wonderful about blockchain is that it enables that transparency, accountability from the platform. So with Loophole, we designed it in a way whereby we're collecting this data. Let's say, I'm looking for a software engineer role and I want to find out, how much does someone make at Apple or Google? So we have made this platform whereby the company is verified. So we get the information directly from the company and we get to know, this is how much a software engineer makes from Google, entry, mid-level, senior, to like lead of technology. So we get the direct information of their salaries directly from the company, because the data being given to us is verified and is certified from these companies. So it's really, I think those are the kind of softwares that the kind of platforms that you need, especially when it comes to salary transparency, because you actually want the accurate number. Even if you're not giving me, the accurate number, give me the like range so that I know that this is exactly what I can, work with when I'm going to interview at Apple or when I'm going to interview at Google. So it was really wonderful to build, and I think, hopefully it's something we can work on or continue to work on as time goes on, because it's really important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have to say, I mean, I was on the judging panel and I really liked it, but I think it's because I've been directly impacted by things like this, so I could see where you're going with it. And I gave you like really good points. So I know I'm not meant to probably say that, but it was definitely me. I was like, yes, I love this. Faith, I am trying to get your LinkedIn up. My internet is being ridiculously slow at the moment. I don't know why. So I am going to try and get it shared in a second. But no, well done to the three of you, and also the others that are from the team that aren't on the call today. Because kudos, really, really liked it. And I think mutually there was a lot of people there were like, this is it. It was very relevant, and I think it hit it resonated with so many people who are at the hackathon. And because it's an issue that we're going to be facing, like, as I said earlier, 257 years to close the gap is an issue that we're facing right now as women. It's an issue that if we have daughters, they're going to face, nieces and so on, and then their daughters. So it's just one of those things you need to keep talking more about it. And I think the more blunt we are about the situation, the more that will be done. Because once people are put into that shock effect, they then start actioning things. But it takes those ambassadors within a company to be like, this needs to stop, or this shouldn't be happening. So taking a lot more ownership when they identify, like managers, for example, when they see on their team, they've got people doing the same job, but they're not being paid the same, then that should be pulled up and something should be done about it. It sounds, I mean, obviously we're speaking from a non-HR point of view. We're talking about the people who are being affected by this. So maybe if someone from HR was on the call today, they would explain why it's like that within their company. But I don't see that being the case. I've never heard someone say the company does that because of X. Like, I don't think there is. I've never heard a reasonable reason why it is the way it is. So yeah, but thank you all for joining me today. I'm hoping we'll have more conversations like this in the future. I know I think all three of you coming to the hack in April.
I got a wedding in Qatar, so I will be able to.
Oh, yeah.
I'll see. When is it? What day? Because the wedding is
22nd of April.
I think that's when the wedding is. But I'll check with my friend. But if I can make it, I will be there, guys. Because free food and that. I'm joking. Because honestly, it's fun. Honestly, it's a really good shout. Like, I highly recommend it. Honestly.
Yeah,
it's just a wonderful place to
the
network with so many people. So amazing. Yeah. I will keep coming.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, as I say, 22nd of April is the next hackathon. We've also got one happening next year on the 30th of September, which I know seems like ages away, but let's be honest, Christmas is next month and I still feel like I'm in July, so it's one of those things. We've got more meetups happening as well. So we've got one on the 15th of December, which will be our final one of 2022, which is going to be with HSBC over in Canary Wharf. So we've just had that confirmed and started promoting that today. If you are interested in attending, just go onto the showcode.io website, which I believe I'm pointing in the right direction. There we go. Where you'll be able to register for the event and come and find out a bit more about what it's like to work in tech at HSBC. And then we will be doing more ones in the new year. So we haven't got them confirmed yet. But in the meantime, we will be doing an advent calendar of open source projects. So I don't even think the three of you know about that, or maybe you do. Any prizes? Of course there's prizes.
Got to tell Ada, innit? I got to tell Ada.
You should know by now. There's food and there's always prizes. Whatever the prizes are, obviously we give cash prizes, and then obviously all of the projects, our platinum sponsors pick the prizes they want to give away to their project winners. So there's always been some really good prizes though. I mean, I know you guys are still trying to work out what yours is. And I know Kudos won't have a problem with me saying that because they're very aware that you're a little bit perplexed by what a crypto wallet was. But yeah, lots of awesome prizes available. But yeah, come into 2023. If you're not part of the Athena community already, I mean, these girls, obviously I haven't paid them to say what they have today. It is definitely, they're here for a reason. So definitely come join. If you've not really been in tech before, so like Mary, where you're a bit hesitant, definitely come join in with the group chats and stuff, and join the ShowCode community and the Athena community within that. And we will be back with more. Well, this is going to be a weekly session. We always do these webinar series. I won't be joined by these lovely three next week. We'll have someone else. But I'm sure at some point in the future they will be back because, well, they never leave me alone on WhatsApp. So
don't act like you don't love us. Don't act like you don't love us.
Oh, dear. No, you make my day very bright, I have to say. Anytime Regina's message pops up on LinkedIn, I'm like, here we go. But thank you everyone for tuning in today. I mean, it's a really great conversation. As I say, there's a few actions there that I think we could be doing. I will be putting a social post up, sort of highlighting the key actions that companies or we could look at as a society to improve the way it is. But those that haven't attended before, thank you so much. Those that coming back, and you're part of the community already. Thank you for always supporting us. It's really, really appreciated. Any final words from the three of you? I know you've done a lot of talking, so
thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks ShowCode for organising as well.
No problem. No problem. So, well, great, everyone. This will be going up on our YouTube channel. So if there's anyone else that you think should watch this and they're not here today, feel free to share it. Just going to keep plugging. And we will catch you very, very soon. Well, next Tuesday, there'll be another session. So that'll be getting announced by the end of this week. So speak to you all in the future.
This is.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.